The year is 1917, and if you're one of the unlucky people to call Russia your home at the time, you're starving, you're losing World War I, and the people in charge have made all the wrong decisions at every turn. Freeze frame. I bet you're wondering how we got here. Today I'll be discussing the events of the Russian Revolution, the events that led to the revolt, the revolution itself, and the after effects of the revolution. I think it's important that we learn these events because they are paramount in the 20th century and lead directly into a conflict between the United States and the USSR. And while technically the USSR falls in the 90s, I think a lot of the problems that stem from the Cold War still linger to this day. Now that I've discussed what I'll be talking about today, let me move to my first point, which is the events that led to the revolution. So as Russia industrializes into the 20th century, a lot of workers move from rural areas into the city. And with that, they're exposed to progressive ideologies, social reform, and a material lifestyle that they weren't familiar with at the time. In order to receive better wages and safety at work, they create what is known as the St. Petersburg Soviet. But that is quickly stomped out in the Revolution of 1905 by the Tsar of the time, Tsar Nicholas II. In fact, he murders a mass of them in what is known as Bloody Sunday. It's a world-known event at the time, and it creates a lot of disdain for the Tsar. As World War I rages on, Russia is suffering massive casualties, and because people are made to ration food and materials, so everything is sent to the military, the people at home are also suffering, which creates even more disdain for the Tsar. To make matters worse, he assumes control of the military, something he wasn't qualified to do, but he seemed to be the only person to not know that. Now that I've discussed the events that led to the revolution, I'll talk about the revolution itself. So the revolution of 1917 is actually two revolutions and a civil war all within the span of a year. The February Revolution directly ousts Tsar Nicholas II from power. It is led by students, teachers, white-collar workers, some nobility, and they're all in favor of getting the Tsar out of power. But because the Duma take over the government at the time, the provisional government, it leads into the October Revolution between the Bolsheviks, who are also part of the revolution, and the provisional government. The Bolsheviks believed that the government isn't moving at a pace that would help enact a new form of government that they all thought was necessary to get past the Tsar's former reign. After the October Revolution, there's a civil war in Russia from November of 1917 into June of 1923. The Bolsheviks end up coming out on top, and Vladimir Lenin is the first leader of the Soviet Union. They also, because of fear that the Tsar would come back for power, murder and execute his family unjustly. And it's an event that people around the world kind of see with horror, that this family is murdered unjustly. Now that I've talked about the revolution, I'll be talking about the after effects of it. So with Lenin in power, he leads with an iron fist. And a lot of the legislation that he would implement would not only cause a lot of ethnic cleansing, but at home, a lot of people would die in the satellite states, Ukraine, Latvia, Poland, from a lot of the laws that he would create that would just give him more power. After Lenin's death, Stalin takes over, and even more repressive legislation is made across the whole Soviet Union. That leads directly into World War II, where Russia is initially on the Axis power, but then Hitler turns on Russia and they join the Allies and they come out on top, which is a huge boost to the nationalism of the Soviets at the time. After World War II, there's a power struggle between the United States and the Soviet Union that doesn't lead into a direct war, but more of a proxy war, meaning they would fund groups against each other in different parts of the world, South America, Africa, Asia. Instead of fighting each other directly, they would send arms and money to groups that were fighting for their causes, such as like communism or democracy. In conclusion, I've discussed the events of the revolution, the events that led to the revolution itself, and the effects of the revolution. When I unfreeze from this monologue, Russia will descend even further into one of the most repressive regimes ever in history, and that is quite sad. But unless we know history, we are doomed to repeat it.